are listening to an episode of the Radiant Menopause podcast. I have a special treat for you today. I am interviewing my lovely friend Amanda Potter, who is an advanced hypnotherapist, amongst many other things. It's a fascinating conversation, and I know I always say this, but I know the time is just going to fly by when you start listening to Amanda. She has a wonderful storytelling style and really engages us and explains how hypnotherapy works. Enjoy! So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. Here we are at another episode, and I have one of my very favourite people in the world in front of me. Her name is Amanda Potter. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
And look at you sitting in front of your lovely red rose.
Beautiful, isn't it? Love roses.
Absolutely. So Amanda, I've just waxed lyrical about some of the things that you do, and I suppose what we're probably going to have to do is have more than one conversation. Would you agree?
Oh, yes, and I'd like that.
That's good. So we are specifically talking today, I'm going to bear this in mind, to women, and we are talking largely to midlife women. So women that are perhaps in their 40s and beyond, right up into their 60s, 70s, who are looking to enjoy their midlife years, basically.
Okay.
And as you know from the concept of the podcast, because I know that you've listened to some of them, I get all sorts of people on trying to open up people's minds, women and men, to other ways in which they can help themselves to look and feel better as they age. And particularly in this case around sort of those menopausal times. And there's lots of, there's lots of episodes on here that explains what the menopause is, so we're not going to get into that today. And as I've said in the introduction, you do so many things, but I wanted to really start with one of the things that I think most people will perhaps have heard of but never tried, which is hypnotherapy.
Right, okay.
So what I'd really like you to do, because I've had one form of hypnotherapy, but I've never been to you for a hypnotherapy session. I come to you for other things, but not that. We probably ought to do that, actually.
Yeah.
So who is hypnotherapy for, first of all? And is it actually an effective thing for women to be able to do at this time of their life, particularly?
Absolutely. In fact, you can do this at any time in your life. I've helped children, I've helped the elderly, and it's basically understanding the mind. If you can understand, there are two aspects really. We're using the conscious part of our minds as we're chatting right now, and we could chat forever, but we're never really going to change anything. And so I always think if we can stop that and then think about the subconscious mind, that's where all of the programs are running for your behaviors, all your memories are there, everything runs in the subconscious part of your mind. And so hypnotherapy just allows you to access the subconscious part of your mind. That's it. So we've all got a subconscious, we've all got programs running, and we've also got programs running that we'd rather not be running because they're creating a behavior that perhaps we want to change. So a lot of people come for smoking, a lot of people come for weight loss, but right now a lot of people are suffering from anxiety, stress and depression, and every single behavior has a program running. So if you don't like it, you change it.
So you said to me that if you just look at something like smoking, and I think a lot of people will be familiar with that kind of hypnotherapy. So what would you call that type of hypnotherapy for smoking cessation? Is there a type that people would commonly access for that?
Well, when you all depends who you see. There are many types of hypnotherapists.
Oh, right. Okay. So we need to get to that, don't we?
Yeah. And so if you go and see a hypnotherapist who studied suggestion therapy and you want to give up smoking, sometimes suggestion therapy can be very helpful. And I will use suggestion therapy, but as an add-on. I like to use regression therapy because I like to get to the root cause of the issue. And so you have different types of hypnotherapists, and I come under the band of advanced hypnotherapists because we combine different psychological tools. So I'm combining hypnotherapy with regression therapy basically there. And so as you go back to the root cause of the problem, whatever that problem is, whether it's starting smoking or whether it's panic attacks, or it can be anything. It can even relate to tinnitus, lots of issues that arise with the menopause, fibromyalgia is a big one, IBS. So you go to the root cause and you tell me, if you were my client, you would tell me, I have no idea what your root cause is. And so you need to regress, you need to remember. And so with hypnosis, very easily, you can go back to that very first memory. You'd find it very difficult consciously remembering, but subconsciously on a click, you know.
I've always thought that hypnotherapy wouldn't work for me because I have very poor memory. I mean, it's not just something that's happened in menopause, because, you know, we were a bit rubbish at that, aren't we, at a certain age. But, you know, I've been married to my husband for 38 years, and he'll say to me, do you remember when we went to so-and-so? And, you know, in 38 years, if I can remember a handful of events, and I only remember them because he puts a photograph in front of me, like, oh yeah, I can recall that now. So how would that work for somebody like me who has so little memory, particularly of the early life?
That is a fabulous question. Simply because you're showing the difference between the conscious and the subconscious part of the mind. Mm-hmm. And the conscious has to recall, it has to go into the subconscious aspect to remember. And so the issue for you is, for whatever reason, you may just have an overload or baby stress, or the reason why you can't access as easily as somebody else a memory. But when you take the conscious element out, which is going into hypnosis, and let's not get carried away here. I'm not talking stage hypnosis. If you've ever seen stage hypnosis, that is just entertainment. And I have actually done it so that I could find out what it was like, and it is just entertainment. You're pretending. When you actually work with a qualified hypnotherapist, your conscious aspect shuts down. You feel like you can't be bothered. But the subconscious mind comes forward with everything. So the very first time I actually did this, because don't forget, I've had to be convinced. I'm a scientist, really. I studied psychology for many, many years. And so when I actually did hypnotherapy, I was very skeptical, dubious. Anyway, so we actually did a form of regression therapy early on in the course. And I was blown away, simply because we went back to my childhood. Now, I couldn't remember my childhood. Very little comes back if you ask me a question. And again, photographs do help. But I went straight back, and I was on my mum's hip. And she was dressed up in the 70s garb. She had the wafty pants on and the wedges and the long hair and the round glasses, and I could see the flocky wallpaper and the pretend leather couch. And it was like, whoa, I would never have remembered that. I don't even remember that house. We moved out before my brother was born, which was like, he was 2. No, I was 2. He was just, anyway, I couldn't believe it. To the point where I then went to my mum and said, when I was little, when you lived on such a road, did you have this? And she's going, yeah. And I'm going, was it like this? She's going, yeah. How do you even, I'd forgotten that, And so, yes, the memories are there. It's incredible what you perceive in every second, but your subconscious mind notes everything, and it's incredible. So don't even worry about memory. As long as your conscious mind shuts down, which it does, don't forget, everybody goes to sleep at night. And hypnosis is on almost like a sliding scale, if you like. If you've got absolute wide awake, the widest awake you've ever been, to coma, Yeah. In between are all those states of awareness. So just by going into a daydream, you've altered your state of awareness. Yeah. You've kind of took your conscious mind back a little bit as you're daydreaming, but you're actually creating a story in your head with a daydream. You've done it many times. And then, it's like when you're trying to go off to sleep, there's all sorts goes off in your mind. And so it's just different states of awareness. I know for a fact that you meditate, so you know exactly what I mean. When you want the conscious aspect to go out of the way, it's very much there. You could very easily just open up your eyes and carry on with life in the middle of a meditation. Yes. But with hypnosis, it takes you that one little step further than meditation, but just a step before sleep. Yeah. And so you really kind of hover. Yeah, you kind of hover in that state. And I always think to myself, I know I'm in that state because if I thought, like when you're falling asleep, you hit that state where you think to yourself, have I locked the front door? And if you get up to check, you weren't in that state. But there's been many nights I've thought to myself, oh, sod it. And just leave it. And that's me in the state of hypnosis. Yeah. Because you feel like you can't be bothered. Yeah. Right, okay. So when you're in hypnosis, you're very aware. You can go into a trance state. You can go deeper and deeper still, but you wouldn't need to have hypnosis and be that deep unless you wanted to have all your teeth out, or maybe go a little bit deeper if you wanted to have a baby, or that kind of thing. But when you're with an advanced hypnotherapist, they will take you to a level where you're still conscious because you're to make the changes.
Yes.
If I suggested a change, which I would never do, but if I suggested a change and that change was made, there's no guarantee it's permanent. This is why when people go for smoking cessation, it's not always successful because they're suggestions made by the therapist. Whereas if you use regression therapy and go back to the root cause, your client is telling you what the root cause is. And then you ask the subconscious mind of the client, does that still apply now? So, for example, a lot of the time when you go back to the root cause of smoking, it's because I wanted to get served at the bar, so I had a cigarette in my hand, or my friends were doing it and I felt pressured, or I wanted to look older, or I wanted to feel bigger, or I wanted to fit in. And they're roughly all of the answers with a different scenario attached as they've described the memory. And then you just say to the subconscious, or I would say to the subconscious mind, does that still apply now? That very good reason to do that, the very good reason to smoke, or the very good reason to eat a whole bag of crisps so you can't stop, whatever the problem behavior is, does that reason still apply today?
Yeah.
And chances are it doesn't. And so just by suggesting that, the subconscious mind goes, oh, because it's very, very busy. It's doing all sorts of things behind the scenes. It's only when you give it a second to ask it a question and it goes, oh, and then all of a sudden the client changes that. The perspective changes.
It's really interesting. So for somebody like, our listeners, for example, we know that there are lots of physical symptoms of the menopause. Yeah. We know at the moment, for example, we're filming in the second heat of being locked up, as I call it. That stress and worry and fear exacerbate everybody's physical and emotional symptoms. But I think, what I'm seeing is particularly for menopausal women, because we're a bit sensitive at this time. Would you agree?
Oh, God, yeah.
So if you've got a lady who perhaps, and I think one of the most common reasons for somebody going to the doctors is not actually hot flushes and night sweats, which is one of the most common things that people think about. It's more often the emotional symptoms such as depression or anxiety or panic attacks. Yeah. And though that depression, anxiety and panic attacks come hand in hand with the withdrawal in estrogen, we know that because we know that the brain has estrogen receptors all over it, as does all of the body, so that we know this is an association here. But what is potentially the help that you can give by looking back into that past life, whichever past life it is? What are the sorts of things that might come up for that lady who has all of a sudden got to this 48 years old quite happily and is now having these kind of emotional symptoms alongside the drop in estrogen? Can you explain that a little bit?
I can, but Every single person is different in this. Yeah, every single person. So when they come to me, the first thing we do is we have a consultation, and I ask a million questions. And I even say some of these questions are going to sound a little bit crazy, but I need to know. And then I have a mind map. Yeah. And so, yes, your person may be presenting with hot flushes and night sweats. Your person may be presenting with, I don't know, stress and anxiety, depression, yeah, but there will be other issues, and so we have to break it all up, and I have to see some stressors, if you like. We can't get rid of your husband. He's stopping.
Well, we could
now. You know, so as we're looking at all of these different things, there are stresses that we can look at, and there are stresses that we're going to have to work around. And so automatically I'm thinking, where are we going to get to with the root problem, how are we going to get there, but also how many tools can I give to you? Yeah. So maybe with a panic attack, I actually like panic attacks. I know a lot of people don't, because they feel out of control, but that's really the only negative, because a panic attack is a release valve. It's like a pressure cooker, really, releasing the steam from the pressure cooker. And so whenever somebody has a panic attack, I will use NLP and I'll use CBT to help them to understand and reframe this whole episode. And as soon as they stop looking in during the panic attack and they start to look out and take my suggestions, it's a tool, they take my suggestions, all of a sudden they're back in control. So the panic attack stops quicker.
So that's really interesting. Can we just explore that a little bit?
Okay.
Because I know that you are, you know, we call that holistic therapy is exactly what you do. It exactly describes you times 100, really, because of all the things that you do.
Yeah.
So the difference between you, only one of the differences between you and perhaps other hypnotherapy sessions, is that, as you quite rightfully say, you are not only the therapist sitting in the room with that person, but you also have studied all sorts of other interventions, and you mentioned 2 of them there. So cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, and I know you also use emotional freedom technique, or tapping.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you're not only able to help that person identify, you know, in their subconscious what a trigger might be for that particular dis-ease, but you can also, at the end of that session and throughout the time that you spend with them, teach them all of these other interventions.
Yeah.
But so that's the joy of it, really. So can you explain to people, perhaps choose one of those and explain to us that all of these are very valid interventions, aren't they? Or remedies, or methods.
Psychological tools,
Psychological tools, that's a great thing. Yeah. So what is the advantage of your particular offer by being able to tap into just these 4 things that we've mentioned today? And we're going to come back and mention some of the other things another time.
I just find that it's like having as many tools as you can, even in the kitchen, creates a better experience of putting a recipe or a cake together, you know? And so as I was studying psychology, obviously I came across all of these tools. I came across NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, came across CBT, and they're incredible in their own way. I'm just very impatient, you know? So I say CBT can go on for 20 weeks. No, we need to sort that out much quicker, yeah? And so I found, as soon as I came across hypnotherapy, everything happens quicker because you go straight to the subconscious mind. Now, I know you know about EFT and you know about all the tapping, and really it's only when you go into that subconscious state during the tapping and you're singing your happy birthday, I don't know, you still do that now, but as you're going into that subconscious state and you're not necessarily conscious, you've gone into like a daydreamy awareness, then that's the change. Mm-hmm. You know, that's when the change happens. So even with cognitive behavioral therapy and neuro-linguistic programming, even when you're using those therapies, those tools, which are brilliant, if you can get somebody to do that on a subconscious level, everything happens quicker, much quicker. Yeah,
we are in a bit of a quick fix world.
Oh, am I? I'm very impatient. If I can see that your life will improve within weeks,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I want. That's it's not about money. It's about you feeling well and me feeling good about myself because I've just helped you.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, you know?
And I think conventionally, Amanda, I mean, if you were to go to your GP, and, you know, there are lots of GPs, and I bang on about this all the time, that unfortunately don't necessarily think of menopause as the reason why a woman with depression might be sitting in front of her. You know, it's often the last thing they think about. And we're trying to change that paradigm, definitely. But what we also know is that for some women like me, when I suffered with depression and I had my kind of breakdown in 2012, they did offer me antidepressants, but they also offered me some what they called counselling.
Okay.
And, you know, I suppose it was a bit of talking therapy, really. I mean, I remember I did quite a lot of talking and this lady hardly said anything at all.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a bit of a, well, I don't really know quite what I'm doing here, and I don't really see that there's an end to this.
Yeah.
And I'm very much like you as well. I'm a bit impatient. I want to see results. You know, I use a lot of energy things because I want to get yes and no answers really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And I think this is what we want to be able to put over to the women that might be listening, is that, you know, if you combine these things, it's not like you going to your GP and then referring you to a cognitive behavioural specialist or therapist.
Yeah.
Because that is a big commitment and is going to take some time, isn't it?
Yeah. It's going to take some time, and also you've got to invest in it, and you've got to keep that investment up, you know. So to go back to your counselling, when you're talking to somebody, you can talk forever, yeah. You're not necessarily getting to the root cause, unless, of course, you go into that altered state of awareness during your counselling session, you know, and then there's a change.
I don't remember anything that might have happened to me as a child, because I remember about 4 things and all of them were bad. That's the basis. You know, we know that our personality is made up of largely past experiences. So my personality, is the personal reality of that I have, is based on things in the past and my anticipation of things that might happen in the future. That's based on what I know from the past.
Yeah.
So if my past in terms of my childhood is based on 4 bad things, that means that the only thing that I can access to kind of explain why I was in that situation were those 4 things.
That's right. You're working with the conscious mind all of the time, whether you're using NLP, CBT, counselling, EFT. And so this is the beauty of hypnotherapy.
Brilliant.
Because you can access, think of it as your laptop or your computer, yeah? You can have a glitch on Word, or you can have a glitch on Google or whatever. There's no way you can change that. Yeah, that's your conscious mind. So if you could shut that down when you take it to the repairman, he's going to shut your windows down and he's going to go into DOS. You remember the black screen with the white letters? Yeah. That's your subconscious mind, and that's where he makes the changes. You know, and so it's just like hypnotherapy. You have to shut down the active part of the mind, because most of the time it's the active part of the mind that's causing the problem, especially with stress, you know, and anxiety, because we're either worrying about what's gone or what's going to come, when if we were just in the moment, like you are when you're solving issues with hypnotherapy, you're right in the moment, and you ask the subconscious mind, does that apply now? And no, it does not. Or else you wouldn't be sat there in front of me. Yeah. If it applied, if everything was hunky-dory, there'd be no reason to come and see me. It's incredible, because you can actually, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be chewing your skin on the side of your thumb. That's not going to change your world, unless, of course, you keep going down and making everything bleed. But you can find a stutter. You can get to the bottom of a stutter. You know, these things. Even golfing, you know, if you wanted to improve your swing, a lot of these golfers who have done very well have hypnotherapy. Footballers do, you know, and so it can go from I'd like to improve my life a little bit, or even my leisure time a little bit, to actually, if I don't improve this in my life, I don't want a life, you know. And so I can help people in the whole scheme of things to feel better.
Yes.
No matter what they're doing.
And it's really interesting because, you know, for example, I spoke to a lady just yesterday, and she's suspicious that she's in the menopause. Well, yes, because she's 45, so almost certainly. And one of her most distressing things, and it's kind of said very glibly, because it almost feels as if it's a kind of just a bit of an unfortunate thing that happens. She's being really arsey with her husband. Right. She's got no patience for him. She's run out of patience with her husband. And it was, as I say, it was said as, and that's happening to me, as if it was a small thing, but actually it's a really big thing.
Yeah.
And so even if you're coping with your physical symptoms of this withdrawal in estrogen, which is what's going on, that one thing in itself, I believe, and I know you do, is so easily solved, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
By the therapy or the combination of therapies that you offer, yes?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. And to be honest with you, if you don't deal with it, you're going to come to me with something much bigger.
Yeah.
So if you allow those behaviors to build, like having a go at your husband, believing it's because I'm due on, or my hormone, whatever it is, if you start to bury something you don't particularly like, no matter what it is, grief, anything, you're going to bury it with something. That could be sugar, it could be gambling, it could be drinking. I know a lot of people have turned to alcohol and wine because they keep seeing it on the telly and it seems to just numb everything. That's not the answer. You'll be coming to me for alcoholism. Let's nip it in the bud. I do find a lot of ladies of our age, maybe a little bit older, they tend to come and they're on antidepressants. Yeah, they've tried talking to the friends, might have even tried counselling. These issues started before menopause, and when they come to me because they've had enough now, I've tried everything, the first thing we've got to do is look at those antidepressants, because those antidepressants have masked something from the past.
Well, they are depressants. They are depressants.
Exactly, yeah.
I did actually a talk, I was in Durham, I think, last year, and there were probably, I don't know, a third of the women in the room, if not half of the women in the room, that admitted eventually that they were on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Once one person said it, they all came out. And one woman said, I'm getting married in 2 months' time, and I don't want to come off antidepressants because I don't want my husband to know what I'm really like.
Oh, gosh.
Isn't that awful? Because at the moment, her personality is being depressed and kept under control in her eyes by these antidepressants.
It's not. It's just another form of masking, like drinking too much, or it's just burying the issue. Now, don't get me wrong, having antidepressants or even drinking, or it doesn't get in the way of the therapy. We can sort that. Obviously, you can't come to the therapy drunk, but we can still get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
The problem then is you start to feel a bit better, but you can't feel better really because your antidepressants are keeping your mood down. Yeah. So as much as when you first took them, they stop you from feeling worse, they can then eventually stop you from feeling better. Now, I can't tell anybody to come off the tablets. It's up to them. But I do find, well, the majority of people who've come to see me, they end up going back to the doctor and then they say, look, I've had therapy and can we start a process of reducing these tablets? But it shouldn't get that far. That was my point. It shouldn't really get that far. The problem I have in my profession is the doctors do not trust hypnotherapists.
Yeah.
And I know that's a sweeping gesture, a sweeping statement, but they don't. And I know this.
They don't trust functional nutritionists either.
Well, there we go. We're all in the same boat, a good boat to be in. But you see, if the doctors actually understood, and it's the training, they're trained to prescribe. Yeah. If they had a better understanding of how the mind works and emotions and hormones, then they would, and even nutrition. Yeah, but
definitely nutrition.
Yeah. So if they actually had a better understanding, then the women would not get to all the men as well. They wouldn't get to the point where they're on antidepressants and they're still feeling terrible.
Yeah, we are seeing a sea change about that. I mean, I think episode 28, something like that, of this podcast, I interviewed Dr. D Harper, who is a GP but also has a menopause clinic in central London in Harley Street. And she is she did her conventional training, but she also went on to study functional medicine as well. So she is one of the growing band, I believe, of GPs that realise that they're missing a trick here.
Yeah.
And that they need really to be looking more holistically at their clients. But unfortunately, a lot of people, GPs, either don't have the time or the inclination or the interest into looking at things in this very holistic way. So we are stuck in this very allopathic, and I was a nurse, obviously. So this is what I was trained to do as well, which is you have a symptom, you diagnose the symptom, and you give a solution for that, whether that's a pill or an operation or whatever it is. And so I see it as well when people come to me and maybe they've got something like fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
And I always talk about the warning lights on your dashboard. So as you say, you've got this warning light on your dashboard that's making you feel in a particular way, or you've got a particular symptom. If you ignore that symptom, there's another warning sign that comes up on your dashboard, until eventually you've got so many warning signs on your dashboard that that's developed into this massive autoimmune disease, something like fibromyalgia. Whereas the first thing that might have happened if you'd have been on top of that may have been migraines or restless leg syndrome or cramp or constipation or whatever, which is this kind of big flashy sign that there's a deficiency here, and actually very simply very often a deficiency in magnesium, for example. So it's the same thing with you, isn't it? It's getting in there before this problem is so huge.
I have found with fibromyalgia in particular, everybody who I've helped, the issue was emotional, and it was usually from childhood, and it was buried. And a lot of the time it was an experience of abuse, and so when you're a child, you don't know how to deal with it. You just have to, and so you bury it. You find a way to distract yourself and you bury it, and over time your body will want to release, and so automatically you're almost attracting similar kinds of relationships so that your body can heal. I'm not saying you're doing it deliberately, on a subconscious level or even on a energy level, what you're doing is you're attracting something similar so that you can heal from it, let it go and move on, because the body doesn't want a dashboard full of flashing lights. But people don't realize this, and so as they attract another relationship, it just adds to the issue, and then something else will happen and that will add to the issue. And so I find when somebody comes to me with fibromyalgia, and like you say, the whole dashboard's blinking, then we have to, like an onion, pull back the layers, and we always get to that underlying issue that has been buried in childhood. Now, I'm not saying every issue needs regression therapy back to childhood.
Oh, right, okay.
No, not every therapy, but I do find with fibromyalgia, that's where we end up.
It's really interesting, because I don't know if you know, but I at the beginning of lockdown, I launched a campaign called Spot the Signs, which is a poster campaign to help people to spot the signs of domestic violence going on in their local community or in their family, because it's all very hidden, and nobody really thinks it's going on in their family, but it is, because it's so prevalent. And we knew that domestic violence rose during lockdown, in the first lockdown, and that's happening again, sadly, at the moment, with all of the restrictions that we've got. And as part of this program, I also did a number of these podcasts on another show called The Life You Deserve, and I've interviewed a number of different people who have either experienced domestic abuse themselves, men and women, or are experts in the field. And one story really stuck out for me, which you've just reminded me of. They did an experiment in some sort of reception. They had a reception in London, and they invited about, say, 100 people. And they invited a female victim of domestic abuse, and a perpetrator of domestic abuse. And the rest of the people were just ordinary random people. And the experiment was about how long was it going to take the victim and the perpetrator to find each other in that room.
Right.
Guess how long it took?
Tell me.
10 minutes.
No, gosh.
10 minutes.
Wow. You are like a little beacon. You have to heal from your issues. And so you will attract somebody who can help you to heal. That's the bottom line. So it's not just domestic violence that you experience as a child, but there's sexual abuse as well, you know. There's all sorts of abuse. And so I'm not saying you're going to be continually abused sexually throughout your life. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, by burying the issue, you will attract more. Your body doesn't want to keep it. It wants it to go because it's creating internal stress and conflict, and it's got to go.
So let's just look at, I mean, it's all really fascinating stuff. And I hope by now that our listeners can understand that the service that you provide just on this level, because there are lots of other wonderful things that you do as well. But this is a real go-to. It's an easy thing to access for somebody straight away. And I know at the moment, you know, you are providing services not face-to-face because obviously we're restricted. So you're doing things on WhatsApp and Zoom and
video call like this.
Like a video call like this. So as long as you can see people, probably it works. And actually, I'd imagine that's quite nice for some people. They're not quite so intimidated because they've got this screen in front of them. Just before we move on to, I want to talk to you about how you got to this place. Can we just basically get out of the way how this physically works? So, for example, if I felt that I wanted to come to you, and I know everybody's different, but on average, how many sessions would it take for me to come to you to feel much better?
Okay, so you have to come to the first session always because it's a consultation. And I will then teach you how to go into hypnosis, and then I will give you a recording to practice with every day. So that when you come back to me, now don't get me wrong, that there is therapy involved there. So as you're listening to your recording every single day, there is suggestion therapy, there's a little bit of NLP in there, easy for me to say. But as we move on to the following week, your subconscious mind not only comes forward, but it's keen. Wants to know what's going on. You can't ask the subconscious mind to change very quickly. It doesn't want to. It's got too much going on. And so by listening to this recording, which is just a deeper form of meditation, really, but you are learning to stay at the level I need for the next session.
And a bit like meditation, presumably, if you practice it, because I'm much better at meditating now, and you're particularly good at getting me right now.
Well, that's it.
Because I know you use all your hypnosis skills as well. I know it's quite incredible. So a bit like that, though, presumably the more you commit to those practices, the better results you're going to get, and the quicker.
Absolutely. In fact, I had 2 gentlemen come to see me. I'm going back, more than 10 years, But I had 2 gentlemen, and it was so bizarre because they followed each other every week. Sometimes one came before the other one, but they were on the same day every week, and they both presented the same issues. It was all about depression and anxiety. And one was very, very keen. He listened to his recordings sometimes twice a day. He loved them, And the other guy might have done it every other day. Sometimes it was like, I've only managed to listen to it 3 times this week. And the first guy, the keen guy, he was done in 4 sessions. Done, finished, gone. Clicked his heels on the way out, The other guy was still with me at 6 sessions. So it's how much you commit, really. I can't say to you, because everybody's so different anyway, but I can't say to you, you have fibromyalgia, it's going to take me 6 sessions, because it's not about me.
No.
I am only there to facilitate your healing, So as you come to me and you're presenting this issue, or you decide you want to deal with this aspect this week, we'll do that, But you've got to listen to your recordings every week as well. So, sorry, to answer your question, I don't tend to say, I have seen one person for 8 sessions, but that's because we dealt with 2 separate issues, completely separate issues. It was one issue like anxiety, depression, and then there was smoking. Okay. So that was 8. 8 is the maximum number of weeks I have ever seen anybody. Usually people are sorted between 4 and 6 weeks.
But that's really, really quick.
Quick.
If you're sitting and you're listening to this and you have got a massive problem with just even one of the 40 symptoms that are on my website, and go to the website radiantmenopause.com and do the symptom checker. If it's only one of those or something else outside the menopause that is affecting you, if you knew that you could get rid of that in 4 to 6 weeks, isn't that a great idea?
Yeah. You see, some things you can combine. So say, for example, we were dealing with anxiety, yeah, and you'd lost all confidence. We can combine them. That's not 2 lots. I can throw loads of suggestions in for your recording that would boost your confidence, and then maybe we touch on that and top it up before the ending of the sessions. So there are things that you can combine, yeah, but there are also other things that you can't combine, simply because one would water down the other, yeah. So you kind of deal with one and then you deal with the other. But I mean, it doesn't matter to you as my client. That's what I'm thinking about behind the scenes. But every single client will decide on the speed and the route of the therapy. I am very client-led. Yeah. I've got all the tools and I'll teach you as many as I can, but I can only do it at your speed. Yeah.
And I think if you're not familiar with the way that alternate medicine works, if you're only familiar with conventional medicine, which is you know, as I say, you've got a symptom and you turn up and you rock up at your doctor, he spends 10 minutes with you, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And then kind of you go away with a prescription or whatever it might be. If you're only used to that, then this is quite a different concept. One of the things I love about it, and which has come out in our conversation, is that for the first time for a lot of people, they will be in control of their own health and well-being.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is a major paradigm shift. And I think particularly as we're recording this now during COVID-19, one of the things that I'm hoping people are beginning to understand, if we can get them off mainstream media and away from all the fear mongering and all of the bad news that they're being fed all the time, and into a world where we're only putting positive messages out, like you have an amazing immune system. This is your natural vaccine.
Yeah.
If you are taking vitamin D3, for example, regularly, and enough of it, 2,000 international units a day, for example, we know that it not only helps prevent people who went into hospital with COVID in March, but it also helps them to recover as well. And that's going to help any type of flu or virus or bacteria. We know all of these things. We know that if you've got issues with being overweight or you've got other comorbidities, that you are more vulnerable for any type of virus. So it's the time, I think, that we need to wake up and take responsibility. So your kind of intervention and your alternate, or it's not even alternate therapy, I don't know, you know, your particular specialism, I should say, is so important for the moment, because it's giving people the opportunity to say, not only am I going to make a decision about what I'm going to choose, but they can also choose what they tell you or what they talk to you about or what they want to talk to you about in the sessions that they come to you for. Am I explaining that right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. They are in control. And I say this all of the time. You know, I'm not going to force you to do anything, because that would work against what we're trying to achieve. Yeah. And because you're in control of your own healing and the speed of your healing, you will want to do it quicker and you will get more involved. You will invest. Yeah. And you're right. People only tell you so much. I'm a stranger. They used to sit in my treatment room. You know, It was really quite daunting at first, but as they relax and they start to see changes themselves and they're feeling better in themselves, they may slip in another issue and another issue. And that's why I can't say to you, it's just 4 weeks for anxiety, because there'll be something else you've not told me. And that's okay. Yeah. And you'll tell me when you're ready, but we'll have to deal with that as well. But you see, I find that, in fact, the way I teach, let me reword this. The way I work with my client, I am teaching them how to resolve other issues in their future. I don't want them to have to keep coming back to me. Yeah, I mean, if they want to, fair enough. but it costs money, you know. And so if I can teach you and I give you the recording and I say to you, this recording is going to do this, this and this, they will know in the future that if something crops up, because it does, you know, you get rid of all your anxiety and then you get made redundant next month or a year later, you know, you can fall back on your first recording or your second recording. And so they start listening to that, they fall back into that whole, I'm empowered, I have got the answers. And yes, sometimes people will come back to me. Yeah. And they will, especially if it's anything to do with relationships, and another relationship brings up another issue that they didn't have in the previous relationship, perhaps. And so they will come back to me, but it's only one session or maybe two max, because they've got the tools. They've not only got the recordings, but they've remembered exactly what I've explained, or I've given them another tool for their toolbox. I'm all about empowering my clients to heal themselves.
Yes, which is what this, absolutely what this podcast is about, is helping women particularly and empowering them to go, okay, well, I'm open to that, and I'm open to that. And as therapists, you know, because we both are in our very different ways, you know, we also know that we're not necessarily always the end of that person's journey, are we?
No. In fact, I am a Reiki master. And so sometimes when they find this out, because I don't tell my hypnotherapy clients, you know, they're about the mind at that point, but they may find out that I do Reiki, and then all of a sudden the holistic approach really kicks in, because we're looking at their energy then.
Yes.
Or maybe.
And I think it's really important because, you know, we agreed between us today that we would concentrate on the hypnotherapy and the CBT and the rest of it. But, you know, what we are going to do, because I think it's so important that we try and open and expand people's minds that have never heard of Reiki, that have never heard of energy healing, that have never heard of crystals and essential oils, and even the role that our guardian angels can have on all of our healing abilities to heal. And so, you know, we don't have time to talk about those today, but, you know, that's what's so exciting about working with you, Amanda, is because what you're able to do, even if people don't know what you're doing, is you're able to bring in all of these various different aspects of what you've studied and what you know and what you put on this earth to do, I believe, is they're getting so much more than they ever realize when they pick up that phone and book an appointment with Amanda Potter.
I suppose that's true, actually, when you look at it like that. Yes, they do, because they won't realise if I have got some oils burning, that's to reduce stress, or maybe there is a great big amethyst geode and that's going to help to raise their mood, make them feel better. So yeah, there is lots of elements, but if we just stick to the mind and helping people with the mind, I'm an advanced hypnotherapist, and so when you're an advanced hypnotherapist, it's when you combine all the different psychological tools. And so yes, there will be some counselling, but we don't want to go over and over an issue. We want it resolved. We get to
and that's a really good point, actually, because I think a lot of people, if they think about regression therapy or they think about counselling, I do hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to go back there. That made me feel shit. So why do I want to go back there? But this isn't what you're suggesting here, is it?
No, you actually remember for seconds. So say, for example, let's just give you an example. Say it's a relationship issue, and you've been with this fella for, I don't know, 3 years, you're married, but all of a sudden he's wanting to go out with his friends, and that's not sitting well. That's creating a trigger because of things that have happened before. Now, the trust is there with this guy, wasn't with the previous guy. You can see the picture I'm trying to develop. And so very simply, all we need to do, and make it sound far simpler than it is, but she goes back and she remembers the worst, if you like. We go to the root cause. We go to the worst time of the betrayal or the infidelity or whatever it was that applied to that previous relationship. And when she goes back and she remembers, there's perhaps going to be tears, there's perhaps going to be a release. But I only wanted to realize that that man is not the man now. So I only ask her a few questions, and none of them are leading questions. You know, it's just a case of, where are you? Who's with you? What day is it? How are you feeling? It really is just bringing her right to that moment so that she can realise that that issue lay with that relationship. And I know it sounds like noddy as we're talking right now. You should know this, but you don't know this on a subconscious mind. The subconscious mind's job is to protect you. Yeah. So if there's a tiny trigger, maybe even just looked at a funny like a previous husband did, or I don't know, but that look was the trigger. And as soon as she realizes that look will never trigger again, because she's just altered it from the past experience. Now that's very specific. Sometimes it's like a whole load of memories from the past relationship that are applying now, but they're not. As soon as she realizes, hang on a minute, that was John, this is Dave, Dave's different fella altogether, and the subconscious mind has to make that change because it's protecting you from ever hurting as badly as you did before. It's got a great job. And then all of a sudden the walls come down because it's Dave, it's not John.
Yeah.
Or whatever reason. It just the house of cards falls. And then all of a sudden, next time he does whatever, she's like, don't matter, do whatever you want to do. Because in a conscious mind,
there are these moments of clarity that your clients are getting then.
That's it. Bing, bing, bing. It's moments of clarity. And as soon as the subconscious mind makes the change, sometimes subconscious mind doesn't want to make the change. Yeah? And so as I say, does that still apply today? And it goes, well, yeah. Well, then we have to negotiate, you know. There is no way am I going to step in between or try and alter somebody's defense mechanism or protective mechanism. No chance. And so what you do is you ask the subconscious mind, what could it do? Could we like try something? And sometimes it's just like, no. And then we'll have to think of another way of helping that lady or that client to deal with what's going on. There's loads of different ways to sort things out, but that's just regression therapy there we were looking at.
Brilliant. Oh, so fascinating. And I think you've explained it so well, you know, using, I always love to hear other stories and examples, because that kind of, it helps me to understand how this all works. And I'm sure it's been able to help everybody listening to understand what it is, you know, that you do. So we are going to come back because we've just scratched at the surface here.
I feel we've only scratched at the surface. I'm feeling like there's so much more to say because it's just so fabulous as a therapy. You know, one day people will realise and then they'll be solving their problems as quickly as that.
Yeah.
You know?
So, but in the meantime, before, you know, we have this other conversation, and we are going to talk about all of these other different aspects of you.
Okay.
Some of which I have experienced myself, which is why I'm so delighted, you know, that you've agreed to come on and talk to me today. But so what we'll do is we'll make sure that there's some way in the show notes around here, and this will go out as a video eventually, ladies and gentlemen. So there will be ways for you to get a hold of Amanda so that you can investigate whether or not, you know, you could have a face-to-face with her, depending on when you're listening to this, or whether or not you need a video kind of conference type call. But I would, you know, hopefully today you will know now for sure that Amanda knows her stuff. And when we come back, what I want you to do, Amanda, because your story is fascinating.
Okay.
I know a bit of it. So what I'm going to do next time is we're going to delve into a little bit of, you know, what Amanda, you know, the northern bird ended up with an MPhil, not only an advanced hypnotherapist, but also all of these other things that you bring together, because I really think people will be really interested to know your journey and how you went from basically a kind of very insecure housewife with very little confidence.
Gosh, yes, going back a bit there.
Yeah, to the midlife woman that you are now and achieving all of the wonderful things that you do.
Well, it's been lovely. Thank you for inviting me on. I'll come on as many times as you like, because I just love talking about helping people and empowering people, and whether or not we're looking at the mind, the body, the soul, whatever. I'm happy to come at any time. Thank you for asking.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And remember, everybody, if you want to keep up with news and dates, you can join the Facebook group Radio Menopause Chat. So come into there. It's a safe space for women only. So it means that you can get some support and help in that group. And Amanda, you're in that group actually, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So that's one way of people coming into that group as well. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time on the Radiant Menopause podcast.